After the end of the Korean War, Japan was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Battle of Sekigahara.
I wasn't expecting that type of intro. It when you started with the Metal Gear Solid 3 intro, I thought you were actually going to be going something along the lines of just World War II. I would have been like, you're not wrong.
I needed to be specific with that, so I had to actually look up some history. As it turns out, Hideyoshi actually did launch 2 failed invasions into Korea in the late 1500s.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did remember hearing something about that. Yeah, Japan's had a long history of trying to invade Korea in Japan, but always failing in some capacity.
Yeah, other Asian countries really, really do not like Japan, the imperialist Japan.
Japan back in the day was kind of rowdy, much like the series of games. Is that a good segue? I'm gonna roll with it.
Korea, China, the neighboring islands, you name it.
Pretty much. Anywho, God fucking damn it, I didn't realize how... This intro sequence is so fucking pretty when you upscale to 1080p. Jesus.
And you are not hearing the song we're hearing, of course.
Unfortunately, because thank you, TM Revolution. Between TM Revolution and Capcom's unwillingness to promote Sengoku Basara in America are the primary reasons I like to label as why we have not seen it really do well overseas so far. I don't think we're wrong either.
I don't know that the music has much to do with it, but definitely Capcom. And we can get into that because I have some metrics on that front. But the song you are not hearing is TM Revolution's Naked Arms, and because this is the English version of Sengoku Basara 3, subtitled Samurai Heroes, this is actually TM Revolution recording an English cover of his own song, Naked Arms.
Yep. The man does go the extra mile at some points.
Dude, in recent years, he's taken to singing songs in Chinese.
Holy shit. Wow, that's a... Damn. Being
yeah,
chilling?
There's a... Sorry?
Being chilling?
Timely. There's a... I don't know how exactly this came up, but there was either a Thailand or Taiwanese puppet show that aired in Japan, and he did the opening for it, and I think he did it in Chinese.
Well, I guess on that note, I guess I should give us a formal intro. What is up, boys and girls? Welcome to Let's Play Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes between me and Brandon. So, like with a prior recording, this one's going to be post-commentary because I moved and we're trying to figure out how to get things going live. But you know what? A-okay, because this series is a bit wild. God, this is definitely just feels like Devil May Cry 4 with this promo video.
Oh yeah, the audio quality in this video is really, really choppy.
Oh, the audio quality? Oh, I was just talking about like the way the editors are using like After Effects to put these layers like graphics on top of the video. There was some promo videos like for Devil May Cry 4 like this back in the day. That's why I was saying that.
I can believe it, but if you actually crank up the volume a little bit for just this pre-rendered video, you'll see how really low the audio quality is.
Yeah, it's 2010. I'm not horribly shocked about that, honestly.
So I put this in as a little preview to show off what the game looks like, as well as all of the available characters.
Yeah, this
75% of which we will not be playing as.
Yeah, because otherwise we would literally be here for an eternity and a half. So, fun thing, this promo video shared by GameStop, like literally back in the day, was the very first I ever saw of Sengoku Basara. And I thought it looked kind of neat, but I didn't have much context for it, so I'm like, I don't know, it looks kind of cool. I don't know. It wasn't until Brandon became obsessed with Basara that I actually began to learn about the series, so, I mean, go figure.
I know I've told you this story 3 or 4 times, but I need to give the audience context for how Basara became a thing in my life.
Go for it.
So way back in 2012, when One Piece Pirate Warriors 1 for the PlayStation 3 was announced and released, it looked like the coolest thing in the world for me. I was hyped up to hell and back. But at that time, I was fresh out of high school just before college. I didn't have a job, I didn't have money. so I could not afford it. But I wanted to play a game that looked similar to it, because the gameplay itself still looked really cool. At that time, I wasn't super inundated with Warriors and Musou as a concept, so I didn't know... I'd heard of Dynasty Warriors before, but I didn't know there were 8,000 other games that I could buy for like $12. This is something that I crossed paths with originally on Netflix. The first 2 seasons were available on Netflix, and I yeah, so I looked it up on YouTube and on the internet to see if it was something worth watching before I delved into it on Netflix. And I saw that there was a video game, there was a tie-in. But it's like, okay, this looks pretty cool. Picked it up for like $25. And then I proceeded to play this game and literally nothing else from August of that year straight up through December of that year. And I put in about 350, 400 hours and 100%ed this game like a fucking idiot.
Yeah. You never got the Platinum Trophy for this game, did you?
No, because that requires a lot more work. That's stuff like unlock every single ally character, which is a mechanic that'll come up in a bit. Which means you have to do things like not only play every character's all routes, but do things like every possible variation of that route. Which means, like, if a character has 9 stages, then they offer you 2 or 3 stages at a time, doing like 12 variants of that one color route just to unlock every single ally character, and fuck that noise.
Yeah, it sounds kind of bad.
We do have CGI intro scenes for each character. A handful of them are shared, but these still look very good. It's funny seeing Hideyoshi here because he doesn't actually get to speak.
He was voiced by... No, he wasn't voiced by Patrick. He was voiced by Chris Sabin in the dub, yeah.
He was Chris Sabin in the dub. Patrick Seitz is in this game, and in the anime dub, he plays Motochika the pirate.
Yeah, I just looked at Hideyoshi for a second. I was like, that just screams Patrick Seitz. Nope, there's another man with that much testosterone who can do a voice like that. Straight up Piccolo. So I guess we should probably actually elaborate on this game a little bit, just to keep us on track. So Basara Samurai Heroes is actually a little bit of a misnomer. This is actually the 3rd Sengoku Basara game. You guys I'm gonna assume you guys are completely off the grid and don't know what a Basara is. Frankly, I don't blame you. That's probably gonna be a good handful, to be honest, to be completely real here. I like how his nose looks like it's cold. So, this is essentially the 3rd Basara game, actually. The first 2 did... Okay, the first one did technically see a Western release, but through Canada. So we had good old Ocean dubs doing that game. It was labeled Devil Kings. I have a physical copy of that game. It's literally sitting on my bookshelf. It's wild.
So do I.
The second game... Did the second game ever see a Western release? I'm not sure if it did or not.
Two Heroes and Basara X, the Arxis fighting game, did not see Western release because Devil Kings was not well received. If you're wondering how the hell you get the name Devil Kings out of a samurai game, it's because in 2005, Capcom thought that America was either stupid and wouldn't get it, or would not be interested in Japan's history. So what they did is they altered assets, and they changed every character's name from being a Japanese name, as well as rewrote the story to make it generic fantasy evil the devil.
So I'd like to actually give you this context really quickly. Meanwhile, Onimusha, another Japanese Sengoku era, I think, game published by Capcom, was like, fuck you, I do what I want. And it did pretty well in the West.
Yeah, I don't understand how they come to these directions.
These game publishing companies, sometimes I feel like they're what's the word I'm looking for? Like they test the wrong audiences for reception, or that, or they just genuinely sometimes are out of touch with their audience. It's really hard to pinpoint sometimes.
I want to cut in real quick here to say that I absolutely love this narrator. His voice cuts into my soul.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That, if I remember correctly...
Isn't this Golbez from Dissidia?
Yeah, his name is Peter Beckman. He plays Golbez in Final Fantasy IV DS and the Dissidia games. And wildly, he also plays Zangief.
Oh yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about that. That's a jump.
Yeah, so the story was rewritten in Sengoku Basara 1 Devil Kings to be more about generic fantasy. They changed everyone's names. Oda Nobunaga is just Devil King. His wife is Lady Butterfly instead of Nohime. Yukimura is Scorpio. Shingen Takeda is Red Minotaur, etc., etc.
Yeah.
The gameplay is the same, largely unchanged, but all of the window dressing is completely unrecognizable.
Doesn't it not have a difficulty select too? I remember that I tried it one time, I think at your place, and there was some baffling design decisions for it.
It has difficulty selections, but it was also altered to be made harder than the Japanese release, because with the name Devil Kings, it was very clear after the release of Devil May Cry 3 that they were chasing the Devil May Cry trail, hence why the logo and font, if you can bring any of that up, is literally the Devil May Cry 1 logo and font.
It literally is, and you could definitely tell it was made to kind of ride off those coattails, which is bad marketing.
Yeah, it didn't do well. But
obviously, well,
go ahead.
Okay, so it's obvious if you take a tertiary glance at the series that Sengoku Basara is essentially like a quasi Devil May Cry meets Sengoku era Japan. So, but conversely, Devil May Cry 1 and 2 are essentially still trying to be Resident Evil meets like action hero parody. You're not really going to get like the direct like correlation of marketing them off each other back to back like that. 3, 4, and 5. Oh yeah, absolutely. Frankly, I've been arguing with this with Brandon a few times, or just mentioning it. If you release Basara now in America, off of the heels of the huge Yakuza craze that we've experienced, oh, it will take off like fucking gangbusters. But you know, what do I know? I'm just a guy who is a Capcom consumer.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they could have gone about trying to give it a fair shot, and they did this third time with Sengoku Basara 3 here. They localized it perfectly. They gave it a phenomenal dub with what I think, personally at least, is Troy Baker's best performance ever.
I can't disagree, honestly. Troy... this is a... Yeah, let's talk about Troy Baker. We're not talking about anything else for this level immediately. There are two Troy Bakers. The Troy Baker that you had back in before 2010, before Final Fantasy 13, where he was doing a lot of video games and anime stuff, and he was a pretty chill guy from what I understand.
I think the delineation is actually pre-2012, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that too. I liken it with the before release of BioShock Infinite, personally speaking.
That's the one.
And then the Troy Baker after BioShock Infinite and Final Fantasy 13, where the dude will show up 45 minutes late to his own panel at a convention and not even like redirect people to or not even like stay around longer. And definitely also upcharges everyone like a motherfucker and is pretty much one of Hideo Kojima's best friends. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, sounds about right from regurgitating my own stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I missed too many details with what you were explaining before too. And honestly, I've seen interviews with the man. I can kind of see it.
I could rage a little more, but taking off the rage goggles, most of the problem in that particular event was actually with the convention staff, not necessarily his fault. Most of it. Some of it is still him being an asshole, but most of that is the convention's ineptitude. But to give some actual context to the series itself, since we're jumping in with the third and final game of the story, yes, there's a Basara 4. We'll get to that later, because that's a can of worms. Sengoku Basara, each game tells the story and conflict of the three great Japanese warlords of the Sengoku era. The first being Oda Nobunaga, the Demon King, as it were, and conflict with him and taking him down. The second game is regarding his successor, Hideyoshi Toyotomi, and his outward invasion rather than internal absolute dominion that Oda sought out. And this game is following in the wake of Hideyoshi's death, with two different factions' attempts to reunite Japan into a single country that had been at war for at least the past 150 years. So that's the story that's currently being told.
If I can interject on that, Sengoku era Japan is very much a hodgepodge of just power vacuums, emperors/kings dying, and then more power vacuums ensuing with multiple factions trying to war it out. You kind of see similar things with historical China with the Dynasty Warrior series, which a lot of stuff did happen. Oh boy. Japan is definitely a little more prolific, I find, or at least like a little more well documented. I could be wrong about that, but that's just kind of like what I see.
A lot of China's most famous history is exaggerated for the novel The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's hard to delineate what was actual history and what was pumped up for the novel.
Yeah, like you have all your weird ass feats pulled up by like Lu Bu with the archery. It's just like I'm not sure how much of that actually was pulled up by a real dude.
Where it gets into the weeds in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms in relation to Dynasty Warriors is in more recent games, where they bring in the children of certain characters, and you look into their history a little bit, and a lot of it comes down to these children aren't even confirmed to have actually existed, or are fictionalized based on other children that character had.
Yeah,
they don't get that quite into the weeds with Samurai Warriors or Capcom Sengoku Basara.
Yeah, pretty much. There's the red path you could be taking there. Is that a dead end?
That's not a dead end. That's a secret area that has another camp. And I'm trying to find the exact entry, because there are a few entries to that area. One of them leads you, I think, to a dead end. Another one leads you to the full area. And you get special rewards for finding the secret areas.
Fuck me running. I keep forgetting how involved some of the level design of this game can be. Holy shit.
Oh yeah, there's a stage that by the end of it we're going to see a lot of that is still in Capcom's awkward, we don't know how to do platforming era, but is very complex that I both love and hate.
Okay, so I'm glad I can discuss this with you, because now you do have a fair amount of exposure to the Devil May Cry series. Devil May Cry 4 with trying to do some weird-ass platforming from time to time that doesn't always work out too well. It's very much that time period where it's like they're trying to do multiple genres, but also a little bit of platforming just sprinkled in there that doesn't always work, because sometimes your character's drop shadow does not exist.
Yeah. Alright, so if you don't find this area by the time you get to the boss area, all of the camps will start swarming you all at once, theoretically putting you at a disadvantage, so you're supposed to stop the ambush, is the idea.
Yeah.
And yep. We haven't talked about the characters yet at all. We're starting off with Mitsunari Ishida, and he is a character.
Yeah, you know what? I can address this at least, since I have at least done a Let's Play Devil May Cry 3 on my channel long ass time ago, but I could assume there's probably some slightly more Devil May Cry fans and others than the tried and true boss rare fans. So, like I said before, with definite crossover, like cross-pollinating of Devil May Cry into Basara, and sometimes the other way around. I'll talk about that later. You're definitely, so Mitsunari Ishida, you can kind of tell if you just look at him with the supremely over-the-top quick draws katana style. EI, pretty sure that's how to pronounce it. I keep forgetting the damn pronunciation.
Yeah, I know.
Pretty much an exaggeration of Virgil from Devil May Cry. Good old Virgil. We accidentally made a character more popular than Dante. Oops.
This is when they only had Devil May Cry 3's Virgil to go off of.
True. DMC would come out a little bit afterwards, so that they. Oh god, there's a whole weird train I can tell you where I'm pretty sure Mitsunari inspired Virgil's playstyle in DMC, and then Virgil DMC pretty much directly inspired Virgil in DMC4. I'm not even kidding. It's a weird-ass evolution of things.
Yeah, I've played DMC Virgil's campaign. I spent a lot of time playing Virgil's campaign in DMC4 Special Edition. There's literally one taken from the other.
If you ever looked at his gameplay in Devil May Cry 3, it's definitely a lot more rigid and slow and more focused on like the power hits versus like the fast, rapid slashing kind of attacks. Ieyasu definitely taps into more of like a combination of the two where he's incredibly fast, but some moves do have that kind of like slow, powerful strikes that Virgil would be known for in some instances.
Yeah. That was funny. That base commander knocked me into a cutscene.
Yeah, I love it when that shit happens. Maybe we should also mention that you do often play as the alternate outfits for characters when you have the opportunity, depending on what they look like.
Most of the time I find them more interesting. A lot of the times there are just color variations that I don't think are. I love Mitsunari, but if I'm being truthful, I've never been crazy on his purple highlight outfit.
I can kind of see it. His design's always been like a little bit all over the place, especially with the hair helmet. Hilarious as it may be.
I actually like his hair a lot, which is why it's funny that the various anime have such a hard time getting it right.
Yeah.
And the only one that ever did was Judge End, which is the one that people don't like.
Was that the movie?
Judge End was the TV adaptation of Basara 3.
Oh, okay.
The movie was done by the different studio.
Yeah, I remember having some weird stuff, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world to watch.
One of the things with that game, with that anime, is that they try to make a super big deal up front about the secret arc of Basara 3, except they don't actually give you the climax to the secret of Basara 3. So that just kind of ends on a nothing burger.
They almost get there, but yeah, they kind of don't really follow through on all the way. Which is good, because I like Luigi. More on that later.
Yeah.
There's a secondary R1. I love this shit.
R2 attack. So, what's funny actually in recent years, talking again about the comparison between Dynasty Samurai and Sengoku Basara, is that game over game, Basara has steadily been improving its controls, gameplay options, and flow and speed and smoothness of combat. 3 is an absolutely great game, if a little standard. Basara 4 handles like a dream and adds in more attacks and more commands on various buttons. A lot of games ever since Basara 4 have come out have actually been cribbing more from its gameplay control style than from standard Musou. Even Musou itself, Dynasty Warriors 9 having and Part Warriors 4 having the Musou wheel is basically taken from the fact that now in Basara 4 you have 3 different commands that you can execute off of the L1 button, L1 square, L1 triangle, and sometimes L1X. So I just think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, God, I do love cross-pollination like that shit sometimes.
So we're going to be talking about the two companies in relation to each other a lot. I can't help but mention and giggle over the time that Capcom tried to sue Koei over having a copyright or a patent on the concept of the expansion disc.
Oh my god, that.
I think that was 2014.
Was
back
that?
when Capcom
That feels
was,
really too late to be doing something like that.
Capcom didn't quote unquote reform, as it were, until like 2017. They had a 5 to 7 year dead period.
5 to 7 dead period where at some points they were as low in the bank account as having like maybe $50 million left to their name, which might sound like a decent amount, but for making a video game, not so much.
For a major gaming corporation, that's nothing.
Yeah, mid-2010s, Capcom was really taking the brunt of it, just rapidly declining sales on a lot of shit they were trying to do. Dragon's Dogma, a lot of multiplayer Resident Evil games tried chilling out on top of Resident Evil, which is not selling well because, yeah, 6 didn't really do well at all. Well, it did, but not critically at all.
Making 2 more extra re-releases of Street Fighter 4 than were initially planned. Having Street Fighter 5 launch in that absolutely pathetic state.
I think the Street Fighter 4 expansions were partially made to kind of help subsidize their bottom line a little bit, so I can kind of believe that. For what it's worth, I do like AE 2012 because that did bring in Oni, and he's a really fun character, but that's irrelevant. Oni and Evil Ryu are fun characters. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Nice.
They almost made me want to play Street Fighter competitively, but I'm not that good at complex inputs for that.
Not good at complex fighting games, he says, while practicing Strive.
It's been a few months though since I've dropped it, but you know, whatever. FADC comments are wrong. I'll just leave it at that.
There are still them rumors of a Fighter Pass 4.
I'd rather not. I just want them to make a new game to just address the underlying issues.
Me too.
Yep. This is an interesting looking character.
Yes, this is a character that I've quoted 1,000 times over the years. He's voiced by David Lodge.
Huh. Definitely does not look like a David Lodge Jiraiya kind of character.
No, he doesn't. He has more of a pretty boy face.
Yeah. Ironically, the only David Lodge character I think of that comes to mind off of him is ironically the one from Dynasty Warriors.
Maybe it's because I put 100 and something hours into it, but more than Jiraiya, the only one that comes up to me now is Geralt.
Yeah, no, well, I was trying to think of the name too, but yeah, whenever I think of David Lodge, I just think of typecast, grizzled dad, old man kind of characters.
Yeah. So this character, in one of my favorite stages in the game, actually, his gimmick is that he is a sand rat, so he runs around, or sand shark, runs around underground, and he's trying to run away from you. You're trying to track him down and kill him before he gets away and before he runs to his secret base.
Garchomp?
Stage is something like that.
Sorry.
He's a pretty cool dude. Very fatalistic, existential. You'll know immediately.
I feel like I've definitely seen this level of motion before, and if I remember correctly, there's a lot of enemies that spawn on this stage.
Yeah, and the thing is, because he's hiding, and the map is actually staticky, aside from just telling you which bases you do and don't have, you don't know where he is, so you don't know if he's off in one of the bases you already have, taking it back.
Oh, wow. That would make it a little bit difficult.
There's a few stages like that. It's a race against time, as it were, to either claim all the bases before he can, or to find him before he gets back. There's this big fuck-off
That's
ship
a wrecked
just
ship.
sitting here in the desert.
I'm not sure I'm not sure why I should be getting more vibes from. Somehow, Dynasty Warriors Gundam from some levels in 3, or if I should be getting more Pokemon XD vibes to that one. Also, hey, you get horses in this game.
Yeah, from time to time, some stages will have horses that you can ride on, and they're really only useful for certain characters because they're not as fast as you think a horse would be, or as fast as you're used to them being in Dynasty Warriors. They're very situational. And
yeah, when you mentioned that you have to track this guy down who could potentially be taking your bases, I just immediately thought to myself, yeah, I imagine that having a horse accessible, it would make this a lot more bearable, but I forgot you can just kind of get rental horses, I guess.
That's a way of putting it.
Yeah.
To be honest, though, I don't think this stage is even big enough for you to need a horse. You can see all the paths that are running in and out of the center that make it so they're all pretty close
Yeah,
together.
hey, I just noticed there's a red line in your Musa bar down there, or Basara gauge, I guess. What the heck is that?
That only appears on the horse. When you're on the horse, that's when your bar crosses that point. That's when you can start doing your horse dash.
Oh, okay.
You press circle. You do, instead of doing your Basara attack on a horse, your horse goes into a 5 or 10 second sprint faster than normal. There's only one instance in the entire game where you really need that, though.
Going back up to 1,008 combo, nice. You know,
Okay, this is good.
Okay, so we were. I guess I should probably talk about this now. I mean, we kept talking about this during the Gundam 00 playthrough, and I think it definitely bears repeating here too. Early Dynasty Warriors games just were not that great.
No.
So honestly, I would probably much rather play for this genre specifically. I think I would definitely much rather stick to Basara in its early days versus anything Dynasty Warriors 5 backwards. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty valid concern. The
Yeah,
older Warriors games are very slow. 70% of the struggle in those games isn't even combat; it's traversing the map.
Yeah. Try not
they
to
didn't-
die after like a 20-minute stage and then having to redo the whole thing and feeling your life slowly melt away.
And especially since they didn't actually implement a horse on command until 7, I don't think, actually.
Sounds right. Yeah.
There he is. He just did one of my favorite quotes in the game. Days pass, nights drag, and then you die.
Good old Vince McMahon line. Life sucks and then you die. Good shit.
But yeah, this guy is he's either a poet or reads a lot of poetry, because he talks about solidarity and living your best life in your dreams. So he's a really quirky character that I like, but he's sadly a character that doesn't really get expanded on in expansions or later games, and that's because he's not necessarily a one-off, but he's one of the special NPCs created for Basara 3 called the 6 Regional Warlords, which are characters that very few of them actually have a personality, but the ones that do are pretty good. They're created pretty much just for the sake of filling out a stage list, so that way every single campaign you're not doing the same 3 or 4 stages every single time.
Yeah, I can imagine that
variety
would be
in your
a good
campaigns.
thing.
And for my money, most of them make interesting uses of the landscape here. There is chasing them, tracking down Haruhisa through the desert. There's later on the stage in the fog, the stage in the trees, etc. So I think they make for some of the more interesting stages in the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if it was actually in this game or if it was just in Utage, but there was also like one level where you run over roofs, and it was definitely a lot more kinetic and fun. You can kill a level in like 2 minutes if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that stage is from Utage. That's an alternate take on Osaka Castle, which is Mitsunari's stage. You do that in the ninja campaigns because it's a stealth mission, and the premise of that stage is that you're Sasuke Sarutobi trying to deliver Yukimura Sanada's letter of alliance, a proposal of alliance, directly to Mitsunari. And for some reason, he decides rather than walking in the front door, I'm just going to deliver it directly to his chamber near the roof.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stages with a lot of unique gimmicks that I quite like. Oh no.
That's life, right? The days pass.
Oh, I said it again. That's fun.
Dude was going hard on the backdashes there. Holy shit.
Yeah, they another thing needless to say is that of course I'm playing on the hardest difficulty with every character maxed out. So a lot of the times that they'll actually put up a lot more of a fight than you might initially expect.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, there are a couple of times, not in either of Mitsunari's campaigns, but later on the line, where I actually do suffer a few deaths. And if my memory serves, I think the game actually has a sort of adaptive difficulty. If you're playing in multiplayer in this game, I think it actually accounts for that and ramps up the difficulty of fighting against two-player characters.
Oh yeah, that's right. We had that experience before.
Yeah, we've played Basara together before a handful of times, and the game still fights back, even with two players that are fully aware of how the combat works.
So I'm gonna share a little bit of a story with what I've been doing with my downtime recently. You already know, but the audience doesn't. Basically, I mentioned Devil May Cry 3 already before. Literally the very first video I ever posted to my current channel is a test run of Devil May Cry 3 on very hard on the first level, just to see how it came out. But after that, I never actually played the game on very hard ever again. And Devil May Cry 3 is already a game that's kind of famously a little more on the difficult side. Not terribly so, but a little bit. I blame the style system personally. So I've been actually going through Devil May Cry 3 on very hard recently. And I can personally vouch that, yeah, sometimes Capcom games do a little more to boss fights outside of just giving them expanded health pools and more damage on the whole than... And also give them just straight up like new attacks as well at times. Sometimes. Let's see. Virgil doesn't actually use summon swords until Dante must die difficulty at all. Even though you can use them ad nauseum with them. I think the same goes for Nell Angel and Devil May Cry 1 actually, because I don't remember him ever using summon swords on normal difficulty, but I'm pretty sure he uses them on DMD as well. So no, Capcom's pretty good about that.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Verging back onto the game for a second, you can tell that this is Capcom before they really had a grip on wonderful game design on the whole, because we have cutscenes here. They are letterboxed for some reason, and also there are no subtitles in any of the game's cutscenes whatsoever.
Yeah. As a result, I have to walk the tightrope again of balancing our commentary with the game audio. I'm gonna try to be a little more towards us because obviously we're talking a lot of stuff over this. But yeah, it always does kind of suck with Capcom. They've had problems with this since Devil May Cry 1. That game, only the monsters had subtitles, but Dante never had subtitles. It's the weirdest thing.
Which, you know, you'd think they would I don't know how you go through the process of letterboxing these cutscenes so there's a black bar on the bottom, but not put subtitles on it.
Yeah, I don't know. They definitely had like a more cinematic feel going for this, and I can tell that, but you could definitely use a black space for something. Come on, guys.
And again, my mind goes back to the weird 3:2 almost aspect ratio of the cutscenes to subtitles in the original release of Final Fantasy XII.
Oh yeah, no, that shit was wild.
Where the subtitle bar was way bigger than it had any business being.
And I say that, and I'm agreeing with that. And Final Fantasy XII is like one of my top 3 Final Fantasy games, period. So yeah, no, it's weird.
If there's one thing to be learned from Square Enix, it's that nothing is perfect on the first or even second try.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes they'll even unlearn what they learned and just go backwards. Well, Final Fantasy 13.
But, so, I've come to the realization we're 2 or 3 stages in and haven't provided any actual context on the story right in front of us. Mitsunari is one of the two leaders fighting for control, as it were, of the nation at large. Currently, or in general history's case, but in this game, he's just fighting for revenge against Ieyasu. The course of the story as it stands right now was we're trying to recruit as many allies as possible, and as well keep away as many potential allies to Ieyasu as possible.